strange manifestations.
Strange Times.
Mysterious burning object like a UFO in China's skies or downtown airport. Now they say they saw fighter jets chasing these mysterious objects.
Strange Times.
Good evening, America. Welcome to another fantastic and sleepless night. A bold adventure racing into the heart of the unknown. This is Strange Times Radio, broadcasting from the long, adventurous coast, the golden and infamous state of California. Fasten your seatbelts and hold on tight. Now, your host, your guide, your co-pilot, Tom DeLonge.
Well, hello everybody, this is Tom DeLonge coming to you live from the Strange Times studio. This is a really exciting thing for me. You are going to be hearing the weird, the strange, the extraordinary. StrangeTimes.com is a website that I started not too long ago, bringing together UFO news, conspiracies, paranormal, all this different stuff that I've been into for so many years. It all comes together tonight. And guess what? Later on in the show, I talk to an Area 51 employee where I get to ask the one question that's been on everybody's mind since 1947. Did the U.S. government receive a UFO as a crashed vehicle out in the deserts of New Mexico back before anybody even knew what UFOs were? That's coming up tonight. I am here with Chris Cote, the lead editor-in-chief of StrangeTimes.com, and we are going to get started with the news for the evening. But before that, we're going to give you a little news on Bigfoot, Yeti, Sasquatch, your mom, whatever you want to call it. For all those people out there, all you non-believers, listen to this. There is a recording, and I love playing this for my friends. This family in the 1970s was so convinced that there was a Bigfoot in their backyard. They lived in the Pacific Northwest of the United States of America, and they had a big giant forest right out their window. And all the people, they used to tell all their friends that they were hearing screams and hearing these monsters, and no one believed them. So they put a recording device out there. They let it record all night long, and this is what they got. Now, if that didn't scare your pants right off your body and make you fall right back into the arms of your dad, listen to this. This is an actual 911 call of a man who saw a Bigfoot right outside of his window. And this is one of those things that you play your friends. This is one of those things that you really want to talk about at the dinner table. I've listened to this 20 times and I still get chills up and down my spine. This is what happens when you're all alone in the dark and you see a giant creature staring at you.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something looks like a man. I don't know what it was, just that it ran across the yard.
Okay. You've had problems in the neighborhood before?
Yeah, my dog was killed here just recently. I don't know what it was. Whatever it is, it's running. I couldn't catch it if I was going to chase it. But whatever it was standing up. I'm out here looking through the window now and I don't see anything. I don't want to go outside. Jesus Christ, you better...
Sure.
Dio!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Oh, and the guy is on foot.
I don't know what... It's a big... real big person. That's all I can say.
Okay, but it is a person.
Yeah, I'd say it was a person, somebody really big. But he's all in black.
Is he a black male or a white male? Did you actually see whether, or was he just wearing black?
He's all black and he's big.
That is creepy. Okay, let's get some news. Chris, what do you got?
Well, thanks, Tom. We like to start every show with our top 5 stories of the day from StrangeTimes.com. And tonight we have some doozies. So let's just kick it off with our number 5 story. This is The Weird and the Winged.
Winged creature caught on security camera. A couple of videos have surfaced on YouTube that seem to show a winged creature of some kind. The videos show a burst of light coming into the frame and then taking off in an upward direction at great speeds. It seems to have a humanoid-type shape, and the comments on the video vary from declaring it a fake to an entity such as a demon or an angel.
That is a true story. Have you ever heard of the Moth Man?
The movie with Ashton Kutcher?
I was actually speaking about Ashton Kutcher. Have you ever heard of him?
I didn't know they called him the Moth Man.
No, the Moth Man is a serious story on the East Coast where these people were seeing winged creatures. No joke, there's a whole Wikipedia site about the Mothman prophecies, and there was an old couple driving down a highway that saw this crazy winged creature that came out, scared the shit out of them, and then a week later, another young couple saw it, and then every time they saw this winged creature, people started dying.
No, so I mean, these security cameras, they're just running constantly. How do they know that it's not some kind of glitch or an actual moth that is very close to the lens?
But that's all it was.
I mean, right? It's like,
just a big moth on the lens.
It could be. If you were trying to get money out of the ATM one night, you were super drunk, like late at night, and you're trying to push the buttons, and a winged creature shows up behind you, that would be the worst.
Especially if you saw it in a little like round mirror that made it look bigger than it was supposed to. Okay, next story.
Well, a lot of men have this problem when they see a certain article of clothing, they lose all control. For me, it is sports bras, but in Indonesia, it's a whole different story. This next story is called "It Wasn't Me, It Was the Mini."
Indonesia considers banning miniskirts because they make men, quote, do things. Indonesia's religious affairs minister ignited a firestorm when he proposed making miniskirts a porn crime. Suri Ali, an Indonesian government official, said, "Pornography is something that we can feel, but we have to make the criteria," according to the Sydney Morning Herald. Suri was appointed this month to run Indonesia's anti-porn task force, the paper explains. The Wall Street Journal reports that Indonesia's House of Representatives Speaker Marzuki Ali also recently made inflammatory comments around women's apparel, suggesting that women who wear miniskirts could encourage men to rape them.
I think in that story, she said it makes men want to do things, and I think, really, yeah, that's what I was going to say, innocently enough. If it makes a man want to run home and go masturbate, that's fine. I don't encourage masturbating out in the streets every time you see a miniskirt, but, making men do things, that's like, don't you think the first caveman, when he saw his first miniskirt, he did something to himself?
I have a friend that years ago, he got so turned on by the sight of a lady's legs that he literally took this girl outside of the place where he worked and masturbated on her ankles. I swear to God, that's a true story. I'm not here to condemn that. I don't know if she was wearing a miniskirt, but what I get scared of is obviously, the oppression against women. I get scared of the crime against women. But I get really scared of anybody that's going to pin me down and masturbate on my ankles.
Yeah, that's what you don't want. So you should not wear a miniskirt. But I believe the women in Indonesia should be allowed to wear whatever they want. So hopefully this oppressive law will not be passed. If it does, I am going to have real trouble going back to Indonesia.
All right, what else you got for me tonight?
Well, our number 3 story is rather terrifying. It is coming to us all the way from Russia. It is titled "Your Mother." Ship?
Mysterious Russian UFO Mothership reappears. The mysterious triangle UFO Mothership, which has worried residents of St. Petersburg, Russia over the last few weeks, has reappeared and was caught on tape once again. The video posted to YouTube shows the familiar triangular lights folding over on themselves in the sky over a few rooftops as the camera is pointed out of a nearby window. This apparition makes its 3rd appearance, having been spotted and filmed in separate UFO sightings in March and April. So far, no authorities have weighed in on what this may be, but many worried citizens have clamored for an explanation.
So, a couple years ago, this engineer comes out on the internet. I forgot what his name was. It's all over YouTube, and he starts talking about this craft called the Astra TR-3B Locust, which was it's basically the most secretive aircraft that Lockheed Martin has created. It's a black triangle. it uses an engine that displaces the mass of the ship. So it's kind of like an anti-gravity spaceship, if you will. If you won't, that's fine. But it shocked the conspiracy forums. And the first video that came out was a night vision video. I think it was in Paris, and it's this black triangle that's floating over Paris, and it turns into a ball of light and flickers, and it's gone. But this guy came out and said it was an American craft. But this thing has been spotted all over the world. If you go on YouTube and you just type in black triangle UFO, it's everywhere. And so, but I always wonder if it's real, or if the United States is trying to say that's one of ours to scare other countries, or if it is really one of ours, and why are they telling people about it? I don't know.
I've Googled black triangle one time, and
it's a crazy porn scene. It's like you can't do that.
So be careful. Well, let's move on. Let's move away from the black triangles hovering over Russia, and let's move to something a little bit more serious and more, potentially more lethal. This story is called Fartosaurus.
Dinosaurs produced enough flatulence to force climate change. Dinosaurs may be partly to blame for a change in climate because they created so much flatulence, according to leading scientists. Professor Graham Ruxton of St. Andrews University, Scotland, said the giant animals spent 150 years emitting the potent global warming gas methane, and over time, the combined effect was sure to contribute to overall climate change.
That's actually been an age-old conspiracy of global warming, is that they think that the methane from cows are changing the temperature of Earth. So I guess maybe it would make sense because dinosaurs are just giant cows.
Basically. Well, I mean, they eat the same things as cows, right?
Yeah, like smaller dinosaurs.
But there wasn't Mexican food back then. You would think nowadays with Mexican food kind of infiltrating the bowels of the Earth, that many people like yourself, Tom, who eat quite a bit of Mexican food, will be producing enough methane to basically do what the dinosaurs did. You're destroying the world one burrito at a time.
That I did today. I had Mexican food today, and I can definitely tell you that lately I have been destroying the world.
Let's talk about something serious, okay? This is really serious. This could potentially change the course of history as we know it. In America, right now, no, we are not talking about flatulence. We're talking about the very real possibility of a civil war.
We are preparing for massive civil war, says DHS informant. Private investigator Doug Hagman said high-level, reliable sources told him the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, is preparing for massive civil war in America. Hagman goes on to say that his sources confirm the concerns of the DHS stem from a collapse of the U.S. dollar and the hyperinflation, a collapse in the value of the world's primary reserve currency, implies to a nation of 311 million Americans, who, for the significant portion of the population, is armed. Hagman confirmed Rickard's ongoing thesis of a fear of a U.S. dollar collapse at the hands of the Chinese, who hold treasury bonds of approximately $1 trillion, and possibly as well the Russians, who are threatening to launch a gold-backed ruble as an attractive alternative to the U.S. dollar in retaliation for aggressive U.S. foreign policy initiatives against China's and Russia's strategic allies, Iran and Syria.
That really scares me because everything I have read over the past few years is all about economic war. And actually, one of the scariest, a lot of people don't even know this. Months ago, two satellites ran into each other in low Earth orbit. It was a Russian satellite and an American satellite. And no one really knew about it. Russia said, hey, we're so sorry. This satellite, it was just like, it's a defunct satellite. We don't use it for anything. It was just up there. But the chances are like 1,000,000 to 1 to have two satellites that are like the size of a small car hit each other somewhere in orbit in space. But the whole point of it is the satellite that was ours was one of 3 satellites transferring billions, if not trillions of dollars for the TARP bank bailouts. So it was like a total act of economic war where Russia comes in and shows a sign of force and smashes one of our satellites that's transferring U.S. bank funds.
It's a new form of economic terrorism on a global scale.
Yes, and that's what scares me about that story, particularly because it might be true. When we get back after the break, you will hear Rick Savage and his investigation into the Denver airport and why it will protect the King and Queen of England, but not you.
Strange Times Radio. Strange Times Radio.
Welcome back to Strange Times Radio. Rick has a little bit of a story about the Denver International Airport, a group of Freemasons, and a bunker to save certain people's lives and not yours. Rick, what do you got?
ST-101.
What's going on? It's Rick Savage back with another edition of ST-101. Every week, I'm going to do a little check-in. We're calling it ST-101. I'm going to touch on some subjects out there, give you the basic overview of what's going on. I wanted to start with the Denver airport because I'm obsessed with this story. Do you know anything about the Denver airport? Let me give you the overview. First off, 53 square miles. That's twice the size of Manhattan. That's how big the land is that the airport sits on. It was commissioned in 1989 for $1.7 billion. It wasn't finished until 95. It was 2 years late, and they spent $4.8 billion with a B dollars building this thing. That's $3.1 billion over budget. You know, just an extra $3 billion. Also, don't forget that Denver had a fine airport in Stapleton. It was 6 miles from the center of Denver. It was a fine airport, but for some reason, they had to build this new one. So the first thing that's kind of strange about this airport is directly below the airport is a 360,000 square foot bunker. Basically what happened was when they started building the Denver airport, they built 5 large buildings that were going to be terminals. And then after they completed the construction on those 5 buildings, they decided they were unfit for use. So instead of tearing them down, they buried them. Now, the fact that these buildings exist underneath the airport is not disputed by the airport. Their official stance is that they're just used for storage. The theory, of course, is that they're there as safe houses in case there's a catastrophe or a nuclear holocaust or economic collapse, and very important people need a place to go. There's one example that's kind of strange. Back in September 27th, if you remember, Comet Elenin was passing by the Earth, and I don't think there was ever a real risk of us getting hit, but it came within 22 miles, which is pretty close and kind of scary. The president was ushered to Denver. No one really knows why he went to Denver. It wasn't a planned visit, but he just happened to be in Denver when this comet was closely passing by the Earth. Interesting. Also interesting is the artwork inside the airport, and granted that's hard to explain over the radio, but if you go to strangetimes.com/ST101, I posted a bunch of photos up there. There's a lot of evil imagery. There's one with the Lord of Death brandishing an AK-47 and killing a dove of peace with a giant machete. I know that sounds ridiculous as airport artwork, but it really is. There's a lot of fires, there's a lot of kids crying in these giant murals that are all through the airport. Again, go to strangetimes.com/ST101. You could see some of these photos. Another interesting part of the airport is the dedication plaque, which is pretty standard, I think, at big construction sites. They have a dedication ceremony, usually an engraved plaque. They have one at the main entrance of the airport. The thing that's interesting about this one, on the bottom, where it lists kind of the contributors, it lists the New World Airport Commission as the main contributor for the airport. Now, if you Google New World Airport Commission, that doesn't go anywhere. It just links you back to stories like this. No one knows what the New World Airport Commission is, but somehow they were part of the contributors that built this airport. Just kind of interesting. That term New World kind of leads to some thoughts. So there's a photo of this over at Strange Times too. So go check it out at strangetimes.com. And to prove that it's not just me that's obsessed with this Denver airport story, remember Jesse Ventura, former governor, former wrestler, has a conspiracy theory show. He went to the Denver airport, did some investigating. Here's a clip.
You firmly believe there's an underground facility underneath this new Denver airport? I've had drywallers, I've had painters, I've had mechanics tell me it. Why would they lie? I believe them. I have too many people tell me the same story, and they're just regular folks. They don't have an agenda. It's part of a plan to save their butts when the end of the world comes. And they've got all the money in the world, so they can do anything they want.
It's as simple as that.
That's all it is.
Kind of creepy, right? I know. That's the Denver airport for this segment of ST101. You can go to strangetimes.com/ST101. I'll post a bunch of photos over there, some info so you could check it out. Links to the Jesse Ventura clip on YouTube so you can watch that too. And you can shoot me an email. Let me know other subjects you think we should touch on for the next ST101 edition. It's Rick Savage signing off. Until next time.
Thanks, Rick. That was a good story. I've been to Denver Airport many times, but I have not been. I haven't been close to Jesse Ventura. Now, as I understand that the murals and the cornerstone end plaques or whatever those things are at the airport are creepy, what I really want to know is when you got that audio clip from Jesse Ventura, was he wearing pants? Now, that's something we can get into later, but I'm going to take mine off right now. Chris, why don't you fill us in on a story?
We actually sent Paige King, our Strange Times correspondent, out to the fringes of the known universe, and she came back with a pretty interesting story. This is NASA's most daring attempt at space travel yet. Paige, let us in on your latest discovery.
As we speak, NASA is training a team of astronauts to land on an asteroid after a 3 million mile journey. Remember when we went 239,000 miles to the moon? That was a little walk to the mailbox, okay? Sometime in the next decade, we're going to land on an asteroid, traveling at more than 50,000 miles an hour. How? I don't know. But the astronauts are going to drive vehicles on the surface. And, more importantly, they're going to pick up the skills necessary to destroy planet-killer asteroids that may approach our planet in the future. Well, good luck, guys. And, please, keep those asteroids from hitting the Earth. This is Paige King reporting for Strange Times.
All right, Chris, what do you think? Do you think that's even possible or not?
I mean, these asteroids, right, they're flying through space at this unimaginable clip. I don't even know, we haven't even gone back to the moon in the last couple of years, and there's no plans of yet, so why would we be going to an asteroid?
It is true that we are skipping going back to the moon, apparently. The United States is not interested in the moon anymore. We have conquered that.
The moon's boring.
We're on to Mars and asteroids, but they believe that asteroids have a chemical reaction that causes a very particular genesis of the amino acids necessary to create human life. So they're thinking that landing on an asteroid and finding that chemical reaction will lead us to some of the origins of the universe. These are words that you might not be able to spell or understand.
Well, one thing that I do like about landing on an asteroid is you are kind of using that asteroid as its own satellite that it's bringing with it from around the galaxy. So we don't have to go around the galaxy. We wait for an asteroid, jump on it. It's like when, when someone goes on like a trip to Thailand, right? And they come back and they have like venereal diseases from having all kinds of crazy sex. And you're like, oh, okay, so I get to experience that trip that you had around the world, but I yet don't have to do it. You just jump onto their body and you see all the crazy shit that they have.
It's exactly what NASA is thinking. Okay, and now something with a bit more gravity. We're going to do a serious story. We're going to take a balloon, and Chris is going to inhale it and give you...
Welcome to Helium News. Exorcist wanted in Saskatoon. A case of what is being called possible demonic possession in Saskatoon has prompted local church officials to consider the need for an exorcist. CBC News spoke to a Catholic priest involved in the case, which arose in March, and agreed not to identify participants in order to protect their privacy. According to church officials, a priest was called to Saskatoon by a woman who said her... Stop laughing.
Strange Times Radio.
There are a lot of products out there that can talk the talk. But can they walk the walk? Check your radio banner now and see for yourselves.
Strange Times Radio.
So I got the chance to talk to a guy who actually was with the Army Intelligence when he was younger, and he moved up and he was with the Central Intelligence Agency. He's a real true Cold Warrior. His name's T.D. Barnes. When they started building the very first stealth aircraft, T.D. Barnes was the one that was there. And because of his background in missile technology, they needed somebody that understood how missiles hone in on targets and how they blow up planes. The whole thing was to become invisible to radar. The whole thing was to try and guess what Russia had as far as missile technology goes and to build airplanes that can either go faster or too high for these missiles to hit them. So he got called in, and they had to build a place to test this stuff out. And they built this place. It was in an area called 51, the Ranch Groom Lake. It's the place that everybody, it's folklore, legend, where everyone thinks the United States government has UFOs, and we test them there, we fly there, we eat in the catering area with little green aliens. Whatever we do there, this guy is the one that would know. He's been there for decades. He was one of the upper echelon members there, and I got to have a conversation with him, and we're going to play you a few clips right now.
Oh, gee, that's great. Is the lighting halfway decent? Yes, indeed. They got the flag up now.
I asked Mr. Barnes about how he got involved with the Central Intelligence Agency, and this is what he said.
I got involved with the CIA and NSA of flying flights against and aggravating them in Cuba to make them turn on their, go airborne and turn on their defenses, and then we could see what they had, see if we could get through them. And that was kind of my introduction, and we were doing that for the project here in Nevada. I didn't know it at the time, of course, because just very few people ever knew that project existed up until they declassified it. But you didn't know who you was doing it for. But what was determined is whether or not we could build a spy plane to replace the U-2 that could fly, at Mach 3, which is faster than a rifle bullet, and at 90,000 feet or so, and would it be able to fly over the Soviet Union, because that's what we wanted to build it for. So all of us out there, like I was on a special projects team, there's 23 of us, and to this day we don't necessarily know what each other did.
At this point in the interview, I remember I was thinking what it must have been like to be a CIA agent living completely undercover. You can't tell your family, your neighbors about it. You kind of see it in movies, so I asked him what it was like.
And of course, we couldn't talk to people on the outside. Now, we were paranoid on the people on the outside. We did not associate outside of our group, nor did our wives and kids, because they knew that we were doing something they couldn't talk about, that they didn't know what was doing. And to avoid, people said, "What's your husband do?" or ask the kids, "What's your daddy do?" They just wouldn't go outside the circle, so they could avoid those kind of questions. So we all lived in kind of a cocoon of the same people.
So this is where it got really good. This is when I'm sitting here on the phone. I've been on the phone with him for about an hour, and I'm trying to figure out how I can kind of inch towards the UFO topic, but you don't want to kind of sound like a nutcase. But at the same time, that that's what everyone wants to know about. So you have a guy that has what he said was a Q clearance and a secret clearance. One is for the Central Intelligence Agency, and the other one is for the Pentagon Department of Defense. They're two totally different ones. He described how the CIA and the FBI didn't even trust each other back then, that the CIA would not let the FBI do the secret clearances. They had to do their own. So he's talking about all this stuff, and I'm kind of thinking, well, how am I going to get to talk to him about, aliens, right? There's like this pause, and so I got right into it, and I asked him about Roswell.
Northrop, that's where they were testing the early flying wing. They actually had some hangars there, and they developed the flying wing just about that time period. And I don't have anything. It's just speculation, but that might have been something that could have crashed there. And it was the fact that it was so close to where we had all of our nukes, all of our nuclear bombs were at Roswell at the time. And I think that really scared us that anyone would be crashing around there. If anything crashed at all, that's even debatable. But the bottom line is they mishandled the cover story or the makeup of the story. They handled it so badly.
So he starts talking about basically what everyone thinks UFOs are, and he had a pretty good backup story that a lot of the missions and a lot of the flights and a lot of the technology that they were testing at Area 51, when they were seen by pilots, when they were seen by civilians, a lot of times they thought they were UFOs. And he was going on to describe how they had to report on these things, and nobody in the military wanted to get these reports. So it just looked like no one knew. It either looked like we were completely denying it, or it looked like they didn't know what to do with this information, and they were very amateur about it. So So they started to organize groups within the Department of Defense to investigate these UFO sightings, and those groups had no idea what other parts of the government were actually working on. So when they would get too close to what the sightings really were, which were U.S. craft, they would have to stop it, and then they would have to send another group to make sure that secrets didn't get out that weren't supposed to. And this is him talking about that.
We flew 2,850 missions on the A-12 during the arch card out of Area 51 that no one ever knew about. Now, they'd hear the plane. Well, Fallon Naval Air Station took the heat for the sonic booms, even though they didn't know we existed. They just said, yeah, I'll take the blame for it. But anyway, people would see the plane occasionally and then report it, and it'd be a genuine UFO sighting. And the Project Blue Book would start investigating, and if they got too close to learning the truth, they'd run into that wall of security. And there's always some low-ranking, maybe a captain or a major that was doing the investigation, and they'd tell him, that's a top-secret project, son. Make up a story and go home.
And it all boils down to one question. And I asked Mr. Barnes, I said, listen, so you have secret aircraft, you have all this technology, you have the brightest minds, the brightest scientists at Groom Lake at Area 51. And I said, you guys would know. You would know if there really are UFOs out there. And I asked him point blank, I said, do you believe that some of these sightings are real? Do you believe that they are here? Do you believe that there is a chance that the United States knows, the government knows that there are UFOs? And this was his answer.
We never did. No, and we didn't. Always believe in that. They're out there somewhere. But no, we never did really think that they were, watching us.
What a fucking build-up for nothing. I think he's lying. I think he's lying. I think he's lying. I think he's lying.